staying with us here on the Urban Debate. We've got an interesting conversation lined up for you. And this is again basis a statistic and a takeaway from the National Family Health Survey 2019-2020. Now remember, we spoke about this survey and its findings as far as malnutrition and obesity is concerned in our country. Today we're going to talk about alcohol consumption and whether or not prohibition actually helps in reducing alcohol consumption. You have states like Gujarat, for example, on one hand, where there's been prohibition now for a really long time. And so, yes, the consumption there gradually has been low. But is that a cultural thing or because of the law? Difficult to say. It's a question I'm going to be asking our experts today. On the other hand, you have a state like Bihar that actually brought in prohibition just 5 years ago. Yet, if you look at the statistics and what this survey shows, it shows you that more men are still consuming alcohol in Bihar than in Maharashtra. Maharashtra, where there is absolutely no restriction when it comes to alcohol consumption of any kind. So, over 15% of males above the age of 15 are consuming alcohol in Bihar, a dry state. And this ratio is actually pretty much the same whether you are in rural Bihar or urban Bihar, just 1% up and down. Now, of course, if you look at the entire table, what is also interesting is that beating states like Goa, which are considered as your party destinations, and one would assume that there is a higher consumption of alcohol there, or states like Kerala, where already the government has tried various other steps to reduce the consumption of alcohol. Beating these states, it's Telangana actually that sees the highest consumption of alcohol. And then there is Tamil Nadu, which also has a significant amount. Another state where prohibition is repeatedly discussed and debated. And it is actually one of the, promises by AIADMK who's been pushing for it. So the question that I'm going to be asking tonight is, you have the example of Gujarat, where alcohol consumption is low, though it is still available. There is no denying the fact. And then there is Bihar, where prohibition was recently brought in, but clearly men continue to drink in that state. So does prohibition really help? You also have examples of states like Haryana that have actually attempted to bring in prohibition, and then gradually they have repealed that law. In Haryana, in fact, had imposed total prohibition in 1996. And then 2 years later, they decided, oh, this isn't good and it isn't working out for us. So across, last 50 odd years, various places have attempted to do this. Let's say good evening to the panelists who are joining us right now. The question is very simple. Does prohibition help? Dr. Agarwal joining us of the TRS party, former MP Rajiv Ranjan, spokesperson for Janata Dal United, Gopal Agarwal, national spokesperson for the BJP, Anand Madhav, spokesperson for the Congress party. Remember, Congress did tell promise its voters in Bihar that they will relook at this entire prohibition law in Bihar. Nirja Chaudhary, senior journalist, also joining us right now. And let me actually go across to Rajiv Ranjan first, because Rajiv Ranjan ji, इस सर्वे से तो ये दिख रहा है कि अभी बिहार ड्राई स्टेट नहीं बना है पूरा.
देखिए, आपने खुद अपनी बातचीत में ये कहा है कि देश के अनेक राज्यों में प्रोहिबिशन को लेकर के फैसले हुए और उन फैसलों को बदलने की नौबत है. बिहार इसका उदाहरण है. 1977 में कर्पूरी जी मुख्यमंत्री थे, 1 साल के अंदर फैसला बदलना पड़ा. और हरियाणा 96 पे फैसला हुआ, 98 में उसको बदला गया. देश के अनेक राज्यों में इस तरह की कोशिशें हुई, लेकिन इन कोशिशों को जमीन पर उतारना सहज नहीं था. बिहार में कंजम्पशन को लेकर के अगर पहले कोई आंकड़े होते तो मैं मानता हूं ये आंकड़े और भयावह होते. जो कुछ सामने है वो कहीं ना कहीं, जिस समय 2016 में मुख्यमंत्री नीतीश कुमार जी ने बिहार में प्रोहिबिशन का फैसला किया, उन्होंने कहा कि ये चंपारण सत्याग्रह के शताब्दी वर्ष को बिहार की ओर से ये श्रद्धांजलि है, और एक ट्रिब्यूट के तौर पर उन्होंने महात्मा गांधी को शराबबंदी के फैसले को समर्पित किया. और हम देखते हैं कि ये कहीं ना कहीं, जो आपने खुद भी अपनी स्टोरी में जो रिसर्च है उसके हिसाब से आपने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल्स का हवाला दिया है. कांग्रेस जैसी पार्टी जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन और देश की आजादी को लेकर के काफी मुखर रही है और उन्हें यह अभिमान है कि वो देश की सबसे पुरानी पार्टी है, लेकिन शराबबंदी के पक्ष में उनके एक नेता का जो आज बयान है, शराबबंदी के खिलाफ जो उनके नेता का बयान है, वो हैरानी पैदा करने वाला बयान है। और ये बयान पूरी तरह से शराबबंदी के खिलाफ वातावरण बनाने की कोशिश है। और मुझे ऐसा लगता है ये गांधी के सपने, महात्मा गांधी के विचारों के साथ छेड़छाड़ है। इसलिए कि उन्होंने यंग इंडिया में लगातार अलग अलग मौके पर शराबबंदी को लेकर के अपनी दो टूक राय रखी, उसे एक सोशल एविल बताया और आजीवन उन्होंने अपने पूरे स्वाधीनता संग्राम के साथ साथ शराबबंदी को भी लगातार निशाने पर रखा, शराब को लेकर के अपनी बातें रखी। अब सवाल यह है कि अगर कमियां हैं तो आप ये मानेंगी कि कॉलोनियल इंडिया में कानून के कई ऐसे प्रावधान बने जो उस दौर की अराजकता को नियंत्रित करने के लिए गए। हत्या और बलात्कार, कई तरह के आईपीसी और सीआरपीसी में ऐसे प्रावधान हैं। उन प्रावधानों के रहने के बाद भी कुछ न कुछ अपराध के मामले होंगे, लेकिन इसका अर्थ ये नहीं है कि उन कानूनों को बदल दिया जाए। अगर कमियां हैं तो निसंदेह राज्य सरकार का संकल्प है उन कमियों को और बेहतर तरीके से हम दुरुस्त करेंगे और पूरी तरह से शराबबंदी का जो सपना है महात्मा गांधी का और नीतीश कुमार जी का जो संकल्प है उसको इस कार्यकाल में हम जमीन पर उतारेंगे।
ओके, लेट मी ब्रिंग इन आवर अदर पैनलिस्ट, क्योंकि राजीव रंजन जी कह रहे हैं कि ये बहुत मुश्किल काम है लेकिन हम जरूर इसको पूरा करेंगे। वी आर नॉट गोइंग टू गिव अप। डॉक्टर गौड़, इफ एनी स्टेट okay, I'm just going to go back to Dr. Gaur in just a bit, but Anand Madhav, would you want to respond to what Rajiv Ranjan is saying about Congress party's stand?
In fact, they are not very practical. They are just talking philosophical things. They need to understand the kind of consumption which has been increased of the liquor in Bihar. At the same time, there is an increase in spurious liquor. There is a nexus between the mafia and the police. And it is being said by the Chief Minister also that 9 lakhs bottles is being consumed by the rats. So all these stories which you know very well. So in Bihar, it's a complete failure. They need to look into it. They must not talk only the philosophical, ideological thing. They should talk on ground what is happening in Bihar. Bihar has become worst state so far as the consumption of alcohol is concerned. There is a nexus between mafia and the police, and which is being accepted by everyone. And it is the liquor is available everywhere. That each and everyone, they know it very well. You know, in Bihar, there are certain things which I would like to point out, that the arrest which has been done between the April 2016 to August 2020, it's 3,06,310. And the cases disposed in only 443. Convicted people is only 550. So most of them are Dalit people and Mahadalit people. They have been arrested. White collar people have not been arrested. Regularly they are consuming it. But the person who cannot afford, they are behind the bars. It's not that only 3 lakhs people, individuals. There are 3 lakhs families which are behind the bar, which we need to understand. At the same time, the recovery of the liquor is concerned, IMFL, it has been recovered 80 lakhs, 89,000, period is same, April 2016 to August 2026. 80 lakhs, 89,094 bottles, liter. And recovery of country-made liquor is 42 lakhs, 90,889 liters. Total 1 crore 23 lakhs 79,983 liters liquor has been recovered, and they have also destructed 1 lakhs 5.
Yeah, but despite all this recovery, people are still drinking.
Yeah.
I mean, those who are not in jail, who have not been locked up, Mr. Anand Madhav, the point is that despite all of this recovery, which is good if the police is cracking down, if they are catching on the alcohol which is either being smuggled in or illicit alcohol that's being sold.
This is the number which is in white, but there are thousands of people involved into it in the system. There is a parallel economy which is running in Bihar.
Right.
And there is a nexus. Money is not going, revenue is not going to the government, it is going to the individual and the mafias.
Okay.
So they need
so here is the point. Okay, let me bring in Neerja Chaudhary before I go to Gopal Agarwal. Neerja Chaudhary, on one hand, the argument is it doesn't work. Prohibition these laws don't work, they end up impacting the poor people more because they try to somehow get their hands on liquor. They end up in jail. Families are broken because of that. And it leads to corruption. It leads to a mafia. On the other hand, and I was reading this article by Mr. Yogendra Yadav, who said that there is a direct link between alcoholism, especially in poor families, which it completely destroys the families. It leads to more domestic violence. So then what's the solution? What's the solution then, Nirija Chaudhary?
Point number one, Tanvi, you are not asking the question. You are saying more men are drinking as a result in Bihar. You are not asking how many children are not getting milk as a result. How many girls are not getting school books because of that? How many of them are not getting school uniforms? How many women not getting, when they're pregnant, nutritious food that is going to affect the weight of their children, the nutrition of their children, the well-being of their children after they're born? You're not posing those questions in that way. You're simply saying you brought in prohibition and therefore more men are drinking. I would say go back to the directive principles that allow you to make prohibition a policy. They are very clearly, that section is very clearly linked to health and nutrition of families. Why did our constitution make us do that? There was a purpose behind it. Number two, you talk to women anywhere. You talk to women of Bihar. I challenge you to do that and see what the result is going to be. Why do you think, despite unpopularity, Nitish Kumar still made it this time? We all expected, there was so much anti-incumbency that he would lose, but he scraped through. It is because of women of Bihar, and let me tell you, it is because of the policy of prohibition which they endorse. They are happy with this because, it means less domestic violence. It means men coming back home. Of course, there are these problems that you talk about, that more Dalits in the jails because they're not able to pay, the mafia, police and mafia link up. I would ask you, today, sex trafficking, children going into trafficking is on the increase because there is this mafia at work. Would you say we should allow it? Would you say this mafia is at work behind the rape that's taking place? Will you allow it? Today you will say Parliament is not functioning to the maximum that it should. There's stalling. Does that mean we close Parliament and put locks there? Or do we make it work? I think the whole positioning of the issue is the way I would say certain lobbies want it, and the liquor lobby is very, very strong behind this.
Okay, fair enough point. So you're actually saying that you have to keep in mind the way alcoholism destroys families, leaves, kids with no support system, leaves wives and families with no support system, and which is why it is essential. You shouldn't just look at it from the point of view of what percentage of people, men or women, are actually consuming alcohol and whether the law on paper is working or not. But let me actually, if I can go across to Mr. Gaur, and Dr. Gaur, if you can hear me, if there is one state that perhaps needs to look at prohibition, is the state of Telangana, which actually tops the charts when it comes to alcohol consumption. Where do you stand on the debate of prohibition and its effectiveness?
See, historically, you take across the world and also in India, except the Gujarat, almost all the states have been, including our erstwhile United Andhra Pradesh also, there was a prohibition which has failed, and that resulted in the, again, revocation of the policy decision. That is the reality. That is one thing. And second, I don't think there is any controversy regarding alcoholism, especially by the poor, destroys the family and economy. There is no doubt about it. And third point you said regarding comparing Bihar and Gujarat. In Bihar, there is a prohibition, still people drink. In Gujarat, there is a prohibition almost since independence, people don't drink that much. So what does that indicate ultimately? One is the revenue part. One is the illegal part. Third is the personal problem. I think whole issue we must look at is prohibition is not going to succeed. Just even if you try to ban it completely with the iron hand, because most of the times the liquor mafia, illegal liquor manufacturing units and gudumbas, these kind of things, it becomes a racket rather. It becomes a household industry in most of the states where there is a complete ban. So I don't think it has given real result. The only most important part I feel is, see, today in India, when you put up all the states, 1,75,000 crores of the revenue was generated only on the excise by the states, which is not a part of the GST. UP tops actually with a 32,000 crores excise revenue compared to any other states. So the question is, more important is, why only poor people? See, even I have studied in one village, almost 10 to 15% of the income by the poor people they spend on alcohol. People who become a upper middle class, they don't spend that much amount on the alcohol. The same family, when it migrates from the poor to the middle class, when they get educated, when they have a culturally and also economically improves, the rate of alcoholism with the education and the economic empowerment comes down. So what I strongly believe is we have to, from the childhood, bring out a cultural attitude, improve the economic status of the people, and also the cultural aspect. Because in Gujarat, I strongly feel why it is sustaining this, there is some inherent cultural attitude among the state and the public in general, whether it's middle class, upper middle class, or even the poor lower middle class or a poorer section. There is a cultural attitude that drinking is not a social habit regularly. So I think we have to take as a holistic approach rather than just because we ban the alcohol, we will get a more revenue to give the milk. Yes, I agree. Definitely,
Yeah, I'm not
we
even
have
going
to
to the
change
revenue aspect of it. I mean, that business
yeah,
angle is the
yeah,
last thing we should consider. You know, what we
last
are
time.
looking
So
at, yes, yes.
we have to look at the cultural. See, in the smoking, you take everywhere we write it, everywhere we advertise it. Smoking is injurious to health. It kills, but that helps. That helps. It may not have an immediate effect. It will have a cumulative effect. Even
Okay.
the drinking also should be taken as a cultural change from the childhood, from the school, from the education, that you drinking ruins your health, ruins your economy, ruins your family. So that is much more likely to yield rather than just banning a liquor in one state. All the liquor comes from the surrounding states.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's what's
my
happening
view
in
is,
Bihar as well, Dr. Gaur. Most of the
yeah,
liquor that's coming in is being
that
smuggled in from, neighboring states. We all know of what
like
happens for
UP, Madhya
Gujarat as well.
Pradesh.
My research team tells me that when we were preparing for this debate, they came across this very interesting part. Mr. B.H. Khardekar was the Kolhapur MP of the first Lok Sabha. During the Constituent Assembly in 1948, he actually, and this was being debated, that he actually said, you do not know the essential difference between a drinker and a drunkard, an argument that many say actually led to the decision against imposing prohibition at that point of time. That being said, let's look at what Dr. Gaur and Neerja Chaudhary have raised, and Gopal Agarwal. All right, there is a need to bring in prohibition because, or we acknowledge the fact that there is some amount of destruction of families that happens because of alcoholism. But if prohibition is not really solving the problem in states like Bihar, if we fail to solve the problem in states like Haryana earlier, then what is the other solution to fix this problem?
I think we all the panelists have given different views. I agree with Neerja ji. And what I would like to say is that Bihar is a fit example because in the democracy, what the people want mostly have to be implemented by the government. Generally, I was in the Bihar election and I found that women in that states were very happy that the prohibition was there. Their empowerment about their domestic violence, etc. They were already very happy on this situation that liquor ban has helped them. So one thing is that you cannot at one part of them you cannot directly link that the way you were saying that the men are drinking more because of this ban. It is not like
No,
that.
I'm not saying
one
because
thing.
of the ban.
But
I'm
on the
saying
other hand,
clearly the ban hasn't worked to its full intent. That's what I'm saying.
No, but then you can look into how much would have grown if there was no ban. So that is not like that in the analysis. Second thing is statistics are quite very difficult to understand. Second thing is that the important part is the Congress spokesperson was saying that it is the poor people who are facing some brunt of the ban. That's what we have to understand, because drinking is more injurious and more harmful to the weaker sections of the society. They either, because of certain social upbringing or the conditions, etc., have become more prone to drinking, which is harmful to the family and to their own health, because they cannot control. That is because of either it may be awareness about education or their economic conditions or whatever may be the reason. So there it is much more required that they should be forcefully restricted. That is second point. And the third point that I would like to mention is that simply just because certain implementational issues have resulted in not very effective implementation of ban doesn't mean that the law in itself is not required or it should be just done away with. Whatever loopholes about implementation, etc., corruption is there in everywhere, police corruption everywhere. So that doesn't, we have several laws. So implementational issues should be looked into it more. Control and more vigilance is required on the part of the government. But liquor ban has resulted in benefit to women folk and has resulted in reduction in domestic violence and also has resulted in control of unchecked liquor consumption in the weaker sections of the society.
Okay.
The last
So,
point that I would like to mention is, because in Tamil Nadu, Tamil Nadu, there is a high excise on the liquor, and they are generally talking about that because of the revenue received from the liquor, we are able to support more of the government schemes. So state also has certain policies that they can look into. So therefore, and in our indirect taxation structure, this alcohol has been left, and it is for some states a major source of revenue. So it, depending on these state conditions, level of education, awareness, poverty, revenue status, all these things, so every state has I think important that we don't have a national policy but have a state policy depending upon their local condition, and it has been successful on many places. It has brought positive results, and
okay,
I
let me
think
just
it
read out a
should
few more
continue.
interesting statistics as we continue this conversation. Now, Bihar, a higher percentage of men consume alcohol in Bihar, which is a dry state, than Maharashtra, is what these statistics show. And this is not just a third party survey. This
किसके
is the
हैं ये
government survey.
statistics?
This is a
Whose
government survey.
statistics are these?
These are the statistics of the
Bihar
national
government.
No, the National Health Survey, Mr. Gopal Agarwal, that has been done.
National Family Health Survey.
Yes, so this is, I mean, as credible as it should be. Interestingly, Kerala is actually also not too far ahead. Kerala also sees about 19.9% of men who drink alcohol, and I am specifically highlighting Kerala because there is a perception that there is a high amount of alcohol consumption there. The state there had even come out with certain rules and restrictions on the clubs and the bars that should be open.
Quote the statistics which before ban, how much people were drinking, men were drinking in Bihar than compared to Maharashtra.
If you look into that comparison, I can pull that out for you. But let me just say this. The point is not to say whether it's gone up and that it's gone up by because of prohibition. The point is to say even in a dry state, 15% of men are managing to consume alcohol, which is more than states like Maharashtra where there is no restriction. Maybe in Maharashtra they just drink less because the excise is so high on alcohol and the taxes are so high on alcohol. I don't know. We'll have to ask somebody. But I want to go back to the point that has been raised here. So let's say that yes, there is an issue, that it does impact families, it breaks families, it leads to higher domestic violence. Nirja Chaudhary. The argument on the other side side is that, well, men are still consuming alcohol. What you're essentially also doing is putting a lot of them in jail. And these are again poor families, poor men who are now in jail, and that too is affecting the same families. So what did we gain?
Look, I think it is a priority of a society. If 2/3 or more than 2/3 of your population is made up of women and children who are going to be adversely affected by liquor consumption and all that it leads to, we have to think of that. And ultimately, we've seen, you discussed this on your channel and others have also discussed this, the latest NFHS 5 gives very depressing data on the rise of stunting, wasting, undernutrition in children. Out of the 22 states, not all the state data has come so far, in 17 states. Now, this should make us sit up. If our future, and remember, once you have this stunting, undernutrition, it is irreversible unless you can deal with it in the first 2 years of life. It is going to affect your entire future and your demographic dividend, the quality of that dividend, unless you can arrest it. And there's no way to arrest it unless you can do it in the first 2 years of life, nutritious diets that the children really need. And if they are deprived of it, as now it's coming out in the last 5 years, in these states, you've not made progress, you've slumped. Whereas efforts have been to make progress. So we've got to look hard at the reality. Why is this happening? Why is it there is less food? Why is there less nutritious food?
Okay.
Why is anemia in states like Gujarat 80% amongst children? Maharashtra, prosperous states, 70%. That means the right kind of diet is not going in. You're not looking after your adolescent girls. You're marrying early. There's a whole cycle of things. So is that going to be our priority? Or are we going to make the priority more, less men are drinking or more men are drinking, 10%, 15%, whatever that be? I think as a society, we've got to decide the kind of future we want to give our children, period.
Okay.
That is the most important thing.
Let me ask Anand Madhav to respond to this, because he had a list of arguments and statistics to quote to why prohibition needs to be relooked at in Bihar.
Yeah, in fact, no one is against liquor ban. That point I would like to clear it very much. But the way it has been implemented, youth and children, they all are involved in selling the illegal liquors. So implementation is very important. Unless you implement the things in the right way, the things are not going to work. So government has completely failed. In fact, government has taken this as an event, as they take it time to time, because they want, the government is just, they want to say something to the people and they divert the people from one goal to another goal. As Neerja ji rightly cited the example of malnutrition in Bihar, which is at the peak and no one is looking into it. The ICDS is the white elephant there. So we need to look into it, and very important at the same time, while you are planning this liquor ban, there was no parallel economic scheme for the people who were involved into it. And my question is that the people who are behind the bar, due to this stringent law, you need to see that's not the 3 lakhs people, the 3 lakhs families are behind the bar. Why they are behind the bar? When the people who are drinking openly at many places, the white collar people, they are still enjoying it. So prohibition is for everyone, not just for the people, not just for the poor people, and which is not being implemented. Government is not at all serious. Even I had a discussion, informal discussion with the many senior officers. They are saying that it's a honeymoon period for the IPS and the police officers there. Every thana, and you go and you see every thana, it is most of the thana, it has become more concentrated in you know the statistics, the current statistics, crime is increasing every day in Bihar, because they are concentrating on the liquor thing only. They are not concentrating on other things. They are not concentrating on malnutrition. They are not concentrating on the regular crime which is increasing. So my question is that,
Mr. Madhav, I'm just going to ask you to, because you're getting a call on the same line that we are speaking with you, so we are also not able to, clearly hear you. But I get your point. Let me take it to Rajiv Ranjan. Rajiv Ranjan ji, ये अगर हम ये मान ले कि कुछ अभी भी problems हैं, करप्शन है, क्लियरली एक नेक्सस है। अब उसको कैसे डील किया जाएगा, क्योंकि क्लियरली स्टैटिस्टिक्स दिखा रही हैं कि अल्कोहल
जो
इजीली
इनके
अवेलेबल है।
मुख्यमंत्री ने भी एक्सेप्ट किया है।
या तो अब उसको कैसे डील करेंगे आप नई
अब
सरकार
पहले
में?
उनको, अब तो आनंद माधव जी आपने काफी लंबा प्रवचन दे दिया है, सुन लीजिए धैर्य से जवाब। देखिए, कांग्रेस को दरअसल करप्शन के सिवा कुछ पता नहीं है, इसलिए कि कांग्रेस को हम मानते हैं कि कांग्रेस का पर्याय भ्रष्टाचार शब्द है। और
भाई साहब ये देखिए, बात को भटकाइए मत, आप अपनी बात कीजिए। नहीं नहीं, आप बात को भटकाइए, अपनी बात कीजिए। तो फिर हम सृजन की बात करेंगे, फिर हम मुजफ्फरपुर की बात करेंगे। आप लिकर बैन में बात कीजिए ना, आपका इम्प्लीमेंटेशन जो जीरो है।
सबसे पहली बात है तन्वी जी, मैं तो ये कहूंगा कि एक फिल्म रईस आई थी और किसी एक स्टेट की प्रोहिबिशन को लेकर के कई चीजें उसमें, एक बहुत ही मेनस्ट्रीम सिनेमा के एक बड़े हीरो को उस पे कास्ट किया गया था सेंट्रल लीड रोल में थे। देखिए, ये काम बहुत आसान अगर होता तो देश के अनेक राज्यों में इस कानून को बदलने की जरूरत नहीं आई। इसको एक मजबूत इच्छा शक्ति और दृढ़ संकल्प के साथ नीतीश कुमार जी ने इस फैसले को लिया और निर्जा चौधरी जी ने जिस बेबाकी के साथ बिहार की महिलाओं के मन की पीड़ा को पढ़ने का काम किया है, और कहीं ना कहीं महिलाएं तभी संतुष्ट हुई जब उन्हें दिखता है कि इस कानून का प्रभावी क्रियान्वयन हुआ है। कमियां हो सकती हैं और कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल्स में भी न्यूट्रिशन से लेकर के तमाम चीजें और प्रोविजन के खिलाफ जो तर्क है सामने, इतने वर्षों तक कांग्रेस ने कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के डायरेक्टिव प्रिंसिपल,
आप अपनी बात कीजिए ना, आप अपनी बात करने के बजाय कांग्रेस पीछे चले जाते हैं।
ऐसे क्यों करते हैं? मैंने आपको
इसीलिए करते हैं कि अपनी बात आप एक्सेप्ट कीजिए ना कि यू आर अ फेलियर।
नहीं, आनंद माधव, प्लीज लेट्स नॉट इंटरप्ट ईच अदर। वी've had a very polite debate so far. Let's listen to each other. उनको अपनी बात रखने दीजिए। जी राजीव जी,
आजादी के इन 70 वर्षों में कांग्रेस से ये जो पूछा जाना चाहिए कि महात्मा गांधी से केवल गांधी परिवार तक की यात्रा इन्होंने तय की। गांधी के विचारों में प्रोहिबिशन को लेकर के जो संकल्प था, जो उनके अलग अलग अवसरों पर जो विचार थे, उसको अमली जमा पहनाने का इन्होंने कभी प्रयत्न नहीं किया। इनके मंत्री इनके नेता टीएलपी के लीडर है बिहार में अजीत शर्मा, आज इन्होंने शराबबंदी कानून को बदले जाने की मांग की। दरअसल ये पूरी तरह से अवसरवादिता है, और अगर कुछ मामलों में कमियां हैं, उन कमियों को दुरुस्त करने के लिए नीतीश कुमार जी संकल्पित है। एक्सचेकर को लेकर के जो बातें कही गई, टैक्स कलेक्शन को लेकर के जो चीजें कही गई, आज एक चीज निर्जा जी ने बहुत अच्छी बात कही है कि चाहे वो कपड़ों का सवाल हो, पौष्टिक आहार का सवाल हो, आज बिहार के एक सर्वे ने कहा कि पनीर, दूध, इस तरह की कई चीजें, स्टेशनरी, बच्चों की किताबें, उनमें गुणात्मक बदलाव आया। उनकी बिक्री से जीएसटी कलेक्शन का दायरा व्यापक हुआ बिहार में। तो डायरेक्टली जो एक एक्सचेकर को नुकसान बताया जा रहा था, दूसरे तरह से उसकी भरपाई दूसरे क्षेत्रों से हुई। महिलाएं एम्पावर्ड हैं, और कहीं ना कहीं 29वें नंबर पर जो हमारा एनसीआरबी का स्टैटिस्टिक्स है, जो एट्रोसिटीज अगेंस्ट वीमेन का जो इंडेक्स है, उसमें बिहार 29वें नंबर पर है। जो लीवर से लेकर के तमाम जो शराब के सेवन से होने वाली बीमारियां थी, उनमें कमी आई है। सड़क दुर्घटनाएं घटी हैं। अगर इतना कुछ एक राज्य के हित में हुआ है, तो बजाय इसके कि इस फैसले को अलग अलग कांग्रेस शासित राज्यों में ये लागू करने का संकल्प दोहराए, अब तक जो गलती की उन गलतियों का प्रायश्चित करे, तो मुझे लगता है ये ज्यादा अच्छा होता है। इस कानून में कमियां हैं, उनको दुरुस्त करेंगे, और नीतीश कुमार जी ने कानून की कई सख्तियों को कम किया, और अगर गुनाहगार है तो निसंदेह इसे अति पिछड़ी जातियां, कमजोर जातियां, वर्गों में मत बांटिए। गुनाह के पक्ष में किसी तरह से खड़े मत होइए। सख्ती नहीं बरतने पर कभी कमी नहीं आएंगी इन घटनाओं में, और इन घटनाओं के लिए या तो नीतीश कुमार जी के फैसलों के साथ खड़े होइए या खिलाफ तरह के तर्क ढूंढिए। लेकिन जनता मानती है ये बड़ा फैसला है।
ठीक है, ये आपने सही कहा कि ऑब्वियसली प्रोहिबिशन हैज वर्कड। जो नीतीश कुमार के लिए स्ट्रॉन्ग वोटर बेस विमेन का रहा है, वो कंटिन्यू किया, बट चैलेंजेस रिमेन and effectiveness of prohibition on all the issues that we've raised, that's what has to be seen now. We're not saying that we don't acknowledge the problem that exists, that because of alcoholism leads to in a society, in a family, yes, But is this the only effective way of tackling that? What's the point if liquor is still available, if people are still consuming it, if it's still destroying families, and on top of that, it's adding to poor men being sent to jail, families being broken, their livelihood being taken away from them any which ways. What's the point if it just leads to also a lot more of corruption? Is there a better way? Perhaps the governments need to sit down with the experts, or they need to figure out better ways of implementing this prohibition, doing away with the corruption, cracking down on the mafia, stepping up on security on your borders so that alcohol isn't smuggled in from other places if you are really committed to bringing about a change. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation.